On Wednesday, Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Queens, New York to promote the Inflation Reduction Act alongside Congresswoman Grace Meng. Pelosi and Meng touted the $430 billion bill as a consequential legislation that will lower costs for consumers and help deal with larger issues of climate change and health care. With just weeks to go until the midterms, Democrats are focusing on pocketbook issues, claiming that their policies have helped lower costs, including gas, during a period of 40-year high inflation. Republicans have blamed Democrats' spending since President Biden took office for the historic increase in the costs of everyday goods. Meng's district, which encompasses much of New York City's Queensboro, is not considered at risk for Republican takeover. Meng has served in Congress since 2013.
To each and every one of you for being here today. We are so honored today to be back here at the newly renovated Queens Community House. Thank you so much to Ben and your entire team for literally taking care of families of all ages here in our district, here in the borough of Queens. Stick around, we're making some basketball later or some ping pong. We are
some break dancing.
But we are so honored to welcome back our Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, to the borough of Queens. Speaker Pelosi has been to visit us here in Queens many, many times and is no stranger to us. Thank you so much to our elected officials who are here today, Senator Leroy Comrie, Senator Lily Rose, Fellow President Congressman Richards, Senator Rodney was here before, and we have a representative from Assemblywoman Kathy Nolan's office. Thank you so much, as always, to our hometown heroes, 1199 and the New York State Nurses Association. Thank you again to the Forest Hill Senior Center and all of our staff for hosting today's event. As you know, in August, President Biden signed the House Democrats' historic Inflation Reduction Act into law. This bill will help lower the costs of everyday needs, like prescription drugs, and lock in lower health care premiums that will save 13 million people an average of $800 a year. The bill also finally allows Medicare to negotiate the price of prescription drugs and make sure that price increases are not hurting our everyday Americans. It also prevents excessive price hikes and caps out-of-pocket costs to $2,000. And we've been here before, and some of us have had these conversations. So I want to say a special thank you to so many of our members in the audience who have advocated for these necessary policy changes over the last few years. Give yourselves a round of applause. As I said, I'm honored to welcome back Speaker Pelosi. You know who she is. You have seen her on TV. You have read and heard about her amazing work. I don't know how she does it. I think there's 2 or 3 Speaker Pelosi's running around the country in heels. But she has been a phenomenal leader in Congress. And this legislation absolutely would not have been possible without her dedication and commitment to the American people. And many of you see the Speaker Pelosi on camera, but I have to tell you off camera, when no one is watching and we're just having internal conversations with our caucus and members, she is constantly talking about protecting and uplifting our seniors and our children and all families. So I'm really appreciative and so honored that she could be here today, here in Queens, to visit some of our families. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome back Speaker Pelosi for her opening remarks.
morning, everyone. Yes, it is still morning. And what an honor it is. What an honor it is to, I was thought I might have to resort to my mother of five voice. An honor to be here with each and every one of you. I thank Congresswoman Grace Meng for the invitation and for her incredible leadership. And I thank all of you in Queens for sending Grace Meng to the Congress. As she said, she welcomed me back because she has been very clear about making sure that members of Congress hear from her constituents what the priorities should be as we go forward, in their words, so that the solutions relate to their lives. Whatever language it may be, and it may be over 200 languages in Queens. So it's nice to be with all of you, and I just want to take up with something that the Congresswoman said. She thanked you, and we all gave you a hand, and yourselves a hand, for the work that you did to make our success possible with the legislation. I call you our VIPs, our volunteers in policy, our volunteers in politics. With all the maneuvering we try to do internally, we cannot get it done without the outside mobilization. So that was a sincere compliment to you, and also a call to action for where we go. This is a call to action today as we talk about health care, and today as it relates to our seniors. I'm honored to be here with the Queensborough President. As you acknowledged, Mr. Richards, earlier, thank you for being with us, and Representative Pelosi, thank you from the Assembly, and Senator Comrie, as well as Senator Ramos, who was with us earlier. But they would acknowledge that they and we are honored to be here with each and every one of you. And to be here with our panel, to be here, of course, Dennis gave us a tour. It was just a beautiful tour of this fabulous, fabulous facility. It speaks respect for the people that it serves. It shows how infrastructure is social policy in terms of giving people an accommodation. I joked when I said breakdancing. I could have said ballroom dancing. That happens here too. We can't dance too much. But nonetheless, indicative of, again, being a place where people come together, feel a sense of community, which has the word unity right in it. Now, again, this is a call to action day for us to make sure people are aware of what is in the legislation that the Congresswoman said. Now, let me just say something about your Congresswoman. She is a respected leader in the Congress of the United States. I know how respected she is in the community because I've been here with her. I want you to know how respected she is in the Congress. A member, you can't hear? A member of the almighty powerful, I want you to know how respected she is in the Congress. A member of the almighty powerful, as we call it, Appropriations Committee. She has been a leader and bringing home today, just to say this, recognizing the beautiful diversity of Queens. When I was here one time before, we saw not only the diversity, but the diversity within the diversity. The diversity within the Asian American diversity, within the Asian Pacific, as I said, but also the Hispanic community and others. She passed a bill. It's called the AAPI Crimes Law. Strongly bipartisan, practically unanimous. I don't think any other member can make a claim that they passed a law in this Congress with that support. But it was because of respect that they had for Grace Meng that people followed her lead. Also recognizing diversity, she enacted a bill to establish a commission to establish an Asian Pacific American History and Culture Museum, and that is on its path. These things that people hope for a long time. now because of Grace Meng, they're becoming a reality. But that's two specific things that are just current. On the ongoing, she has been really a champion, and I like to note, I know that she's inspired by her boys, who are growing up now, the little boys when she came, but for the children, when you're for the children, it's about for their families, for their parents, for their grandparents, for the entire family. And that is those kitchen table issues of America's working families that she has been such a champion. So when we talk about the inflation bill, the inflation reduction legislation that reduces the cost of prescription drugs by enabling the Secretary to negotiate, we've been trying for decades to get that. For decades. The other side just resisted. In fact, not one of them voted for it. But with our president, with President Biden, we knew we could get it to his desk. I keep going in now. That we would be able to have it signed into law and have an impact on the kitchen table. $2,000 maximum for seniors on Medicare for their prescription drugs, a giant step forward. Lowering cost of premiums for families. We said $800 a person for a family of four, that's around $3,000. So again, meeting the kitchen table needs to lower costs, create good paying jobs, and have community safety. That's what the bill is about. But for seniors, lowering costs of prescription drugs, having the cap of $2,000, this is very, very important. Also, staving off the leverage that the other side wants to use to slash Social Security and Medicare because they just don't believe it. And that's a hard thing to say, but that's what they are planning for the next Congress. We can't let that happen. Anybody here know anybody who needs insulin? Well, we reduced the cost of insulin from $600, $300 even, down to $35 a month. And we said to the drug industry, you cannot have any predatory price hikes that exceed inflation. They've never had to live by that. So again, at the kitchen table, the price of prescription drugs is a big issue. It's a health issue, it's a financial service, it's a financial health issue as well. And all of this at the same time as we are dealing with other family issues like a woman's right to choose, which is a kitchen table issue. I came here to listen, and the microphone probably knows that. But an honor, as I said, to be with the official family here, all of you, and thank you for your leadership in your communities. But we have some very special guests that Congresswoman is going to introduce. But I want to say what an honor it is to be here with Michelle Darnell, with Jana Solomson and Rose Green, and the organizations they represent. But let me once again thank Ben for his talents, for his leadership at this community center. This is the deal, guys. I was the one breaking this in for you. You gotta hold it like this. Ben, thank you for your leadership and for making this a place so welcoming, so respectful, so meeting the needs of the people of the community. It truly is a model for the nation. And I thank you. To the distinguished Congresswoman from the Queen, Congresswoman Grace Meng. Like this.
Sharp elbows. Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi. And we just wanted to introduce and to hear a little bit from our experts who are on the field, on the ground, listening and responding to their members. These leaders, Marcel, Joanna, Rose, they're not just leaders in their fields. They are on the ground with their members. And while much of the country was able to safely quarantine at home, them and their members were not. They were taking care of our families here in Queens. Queens was really the earliest epicenter of the epicenter during the pandemic. And so whether it's the pandemic or whether it's issues and costs facing our senior citizens, these three leaders have a full sense of what their members are facing. So I wanted to ask them, you and your members have been on the front lines caring for our seniors throughout the pandemic, and as always, if we could give them a round of applause, thank you for your service. Can you describe what the impact of capping out-of-pocket drug costs will be for your patients? And what about capping monthly insulin costs, as the speaker mentioned? Do you have an idea of what this means to your patients and what impact it will have on them?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the Congressmen listening. Okay, and Speaker of the House, thank you for being here. Mr. Thomas. So, my name is Rose Green. I'm a nurse at Amherst Hospital, the epicenter of the epicenter. And I do represent the nurses there also, but when COVID hit, I had to roll up my sleeve, put my scarf back on, and get back to the ER where I'm from. The capping of medication for these patients, I'm going to tell you, I always say that at Amherst Hospital, throughout the H&H system, we always say every patient is a VIP. So, what we look at all our patients, having this medication cap, sometimes when they come to the hospital, we turn back no one at H&H. Everyone is seen regardless of their ability to pay, class, creed, or race. Everyone gets the same treatment. So this is a tremendous help for all these patients that come to our hospital that are uninsured. And I thank the House of Representatives and also President Biden for passing this law. Patients will get the care and the medication they need now, because most of our ER, the patients are staying there because they don't have any doctors to go to. So when they come there, they have to get the medicine that we provide for them in the pharmacy. When they go outside, they have to pay so much money. So this is helpful, and I thank you for this. And we've been asking for this for decades, as you said, Speaker of the House, and finally, this is an historical moment for us. Thank you.
To do this correctly. I want to say thank you. It's really an honor to be here with so many of our allies. Thank you for going through a very tough 2 years with us. And I see faces of people who really were on the front lines with us. And we are grateful. The Congressman's help, Speaker's help, Senators, for Presidents, for all your support. As Rose mentioned, she's on the front lines. I also work behind the scenes advocacy, and we are thrilled to be part of this call to action. We're an organization of frontline nurses. We work with some of the most marginalized communities, and as Rose can attest, many of the patients in these communities suffer with diabetes and deal with severe financial challenges. So the idea that they can get life-saving medication is hugely important. It impacts not just their health, it impacts their communities, it impacts their mental health, not having to worry about the costs of medication they so desperately need. And we feel it's our duty to ensure that patients get equal access to the best care possible. And the Inflation Reduction Act most certainly is an incredible part of ensuring access to care for all in some of our most vulnerable communities. Good morning. All and
Turn it off and on.
much better. Good morning again. My name is Marcel Denal. I am with the Healthcare Education Project. It's a partnership with Greater New York Hospital Association and 1199 SEIU. We are one of the largest healthcare unions throughout New York State. So during the pandemic, yes, we were on the front line. There were so many issues. But as I sit here this morning, I think of our home care workers. We represent hospitals, New York represents nursing homes and clinics, and also nursing homes, clinics that, one minute, please, because it's emotional. But I am really focused right now thinking of our home care workers who work the hardest, receive the less pay, and they have to make a decision whether this month they can afford to pay for their insulin, or am I going to have my lights turned off, or am I going to be able to feed my family? And many of them have 2 cases per day, where they also have to include the expense of taking public transportation to get from one side of Queens to another. So the Inflation Reduction Act, I congratulate the Speaker of the House and her peers and President Biden. This $35 cap that will help families be able not only to pay for their medication, but as we all know, when we have a health issue and one part is not taken care of, that there's other areas where that develops that affects one's health. So, as Joanne mentioned, there's other health components now that people can focus more on getting insulin. It is a life-saving medication, and I'm so thrilled that the IRA passed and will be in effect to help our families. Thank you so much for the amazing testimonies. And just to give you a glimpse for our congressional district here in Queens, that's over 10,000 people, 10,000 senior citizens who will be able to save thousands of dollars because of this bill. So we are very grateful. Next, I'd like to ask a question of Ben, our host. Now that President Biden has signed this bill into law, we have to ensure implementation is occurring in a manner that is most accessible for our seniors. Something I've been working on with our colleagues in government is more language accessibility in our healthcare system. We are representing probably the most diverse county in the country. Here at Queens Community House, your team serves a variety of seniors from all types of backgrounds. We saw it on the tour, including some who have limited English proficiency. Can you talk about how you and your team help make sure that our seniors have access to the services and the benefits that they need? And are there resources or ways that we should be working to make sure Medicare is accessible to all who qualify?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Congressman Meng, thank you, Speaker Pelosi, for joining us here at the Queens Community House today. It's so much nice to have you here. My team has been working for over 2 years to renovate this center, to get it ready for events like this without knowing until quite recently that this event was happening. So it's really a pleasure to have you all here. I should also say we just completed the first phase of the renovation, and we have upcoming more work to do. I commit to having a state-of-the-art sound system as part of the next phase of the renovation. and really want to thank Borough President Richards and the other elected officials who provided so much of the support necessary for this renovation. I also want to just echo some of what Marcel said about the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act. We at Queens Community House, we provide meals at our senior centers, we provide case management services, housing assistance services, we provide home delivered meals for homebound seniors, and we see how much older adults' budgets are pinched every day. And so the same kinds of trade-offs that Marcel was talking about, home care workers making, we see our seniors making those trade-offs. And certainly, prescription drugs are a really important part of the budget of so many of our seniors. And so as they're struggling to figure out how to make those choices between rent and food, the control of prescription drug costs will mean a lot to our homebound seniors. So we're really grateful for that work. Regarding language access, one of the things that we do to make it possible for us to serve such a diverse community is we hire from the community. So we have a lot of diverse staff who our staff speaks at least 5 languages, and then we also we access translation services when we need to. We work with a lot of there's a lot of great small community-based organizations in Queens that represent the diverse community of Queens. We work with a lot of community partners. Those partnerships are critically important to us, providing services and reaching into the communities that we serve. And so just really appreciate having elected officials here who recognize the importance of community-based organization and the way that we reach into the communities, because that is how we're going to make services like Medicare more accessible to the diverse communities of Queens.
Thank you so much, Ben. Now, we only have time for one more question, and maybe we'll have the speaker kick it off. But what is the next step? Where do you think we need to go from here to ensure that more Americans get the health care access that they need and deserve?
Thank you. Well, again, we're here to hear what you think about that, but I'll tell you what your thinking has led us to thus far. As Marcel mentioned, we're talking about the cost to seniors, but as all have Rose, I was honored to be at Elmhurst with the Congresswoman before. Welcome. Nice to be with you here. Thank you, Johanna, for your kind words about the truth of what this cost, lowering cost, means to people. And one of the other features that Marcel brought up was of how we treat our healthcare workers. You all addressed that. So what we want to do next, and what we had as part of our agenda, is to have home health funding for home health care, where we pay the workers what they deserve. We treat them with respect. In California, we want to unionize, and we think that's a good way to make sure we can get rid of them. But this is really important, not only for those workers to pay our respect and our pay to them. It's about freeing more women to be in the workplace, because mostly it's women who are the caregivers at home, some men, but mostly it's women. So if they can know that their sibling or their parent or even their child is cared for at home in a very positive, safe way, then we'll have more women in the workplace. And to that end, we want to again renew, it will expire at the end of this year, the child tax credit, because that's really important for the kitchen table, to put food on the table and meet families' needs. And we want to have increased funding and opportunity for child care, the tax credits and the rest of child care. And we want to have universal pre-K nationally, universal pre-K. So all of these things are about freeing moms and dads to be clearly and safely in the workplace. Children learning, parents earning. But again, meeting the financial needs of families. Also with that, though, a big issue, of course, is affordable housing. And that is because and I think as we go forward. So what we have done thus far is an enormous step forward, but much more needs to be done in terms of access to care, access to child care, and the rest. And would you believe that in our other initiatives that the President has put forth, President Biden has been a champion for justice and equity and diversity and inclusiveness, so that this will enable many more people of color to take, whether it's with our education initiatives, our investments in science and research, more broadly to include the diversity of our country, whether it's in our infrastructure bill that has $60 billion for inclusiveness. To say in the past maybe a highway came through a neighborhood and divided it, we're undoing that. We're unifying communities, and we're doing so by having the very people affected by it make the decisions associated with it, so that the workforce and the leadership and the equity and ownership, springs from the community. So it's about fairness, justice, equity, inclusiveness, recognizing the diversity of our country, which will make us preeminent in the world, continue to make us preeminent in the world. But again, much of it can only happen if we're taking care of the children or our seniors or people with persons with disabilities in our households, in our communities, with all the respect in the world for them and for their caregivers. And one more thing I want to say about the Inflation Reduction Act is it does enable us to provide good-paying jobs with diversity in mind by having a large $370 billion to address the climate crisis in a way that involves the community. The air people breathe, and environmental justice. How much asthma exists in communities of color? That's just an injustice in our country that must be addressed drastically, and the legislation does that. So that's a health issue. The air our children breathe, the water they drink. It's a jobs issue, creating good-paying green energy jobs. It's a security issue because of the competition for habitat and food and the rest can cause conflict. And it's a moral issue. If you believe, as I do, that this is God's creation, we have a moral responsibility, good stewards of it. But even if you don't share that view, we all agree that we have a responsibility to our children to pass on this planet in a responsible way, to pass on this democracy in a strong way, to pass on to kids born now and live into the next century, to make sure they're living in a society that has fairness, justice, inclusiveness, respect for diversity, and the rest. So that's the path that we're on, and a few months, couple months, we hope to be able to implement more of that.
The one thing that I would add to that amazing list is just more and more investments in adult education. Here in Queens, the land of immigrants, and in America, a country of immigrants, we recently have expanded our adult education program because of something that came through the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. We really appreciate the support. The demand in our community for the service is high and growing, and we'd love to see more investments in that.
Okay, I think that one more thing. For our economy, the economy is an issue. The best thing that we can do to strengthen and grow our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi, and I think that's all from our panelists up here, and that concludes our program. So let's everyone give a round of applause. Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi, and of course to our and families. Thank you so much.